Today what we're doing is we are building the suspension and putting our new axles under the frame. Welcome back to the garage, your place for all things Ford Bronco. If this is your first time here, I would love to have you subscribe as I am fully restoring this 1974 Ford Bronco that's really just a frame on the floor right now. I paid $2,000 for this Bronco and my plan is to restore it, keeping track of all the parts and labor to in the end sell it and turn a profit. If you're planning on doing a restoration or a project like this, then definitely sign up for my email. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with all this footage when I'm done with it, but I'll probably put together some kind of masterclass or some kind of course to help other people restore their Bronco in their own garage as well. And also I'm gonna be putting together a list of all the parts that I used, all the tools that I used, and anything like that. So if you're interested at all in that, definitely sign up in the link in the description below. So far what I've done is I've stripped the Bronco down, powder coated the frame and the axles, and re-geared the axles for larger tires. Now this video is called day 7 because it felt weird calling it day 3, but the last video was day 2. So now this is a 2.5-inch lift from Tom's Off-Road, and this is the 11 leaf rear pack, the spring. And I definitely recommend going with something like this because a lot of times lift kits will come with the little block that goes with the stock leafs. And really you need new leaf springs if you're doing a new suspension. And definitely you don't want to go the route of the block. You want to get some 11 pack leaf springs. It's just a softer ride, it's a better ride, and you'll be happier in the end when you do. It's a little bit more expensive, but totally worth it in my opinion. One of the things that I decided when I was building the axles was to wait to put the center section in the Ford 9-inch. This made the axle a lot lighter when I was moving it around and attaching it to the suspension. Now with everything attached, I'll do the final assembly on the 9-inch. These are the new axle shafts from Tom's Off-Road. You definitely don't have to get new axle shafts if yours are in good condition, but this set was only about $300 and it shipped with the bearings pressed on. Now I mentioned this in the last video, but radius arms are an easy way to save money. I had Tennessee Classic Trucks sandblast these when they were working on my axles, and I put just some Eastwood 2K spray paint on them and they look great. Now, to avoid Bronco lean, make sure your radius arms are level when you're tightening the caps down. The caps should be tightened down to about 90 to 110 foot-pounds. Matt's Garage did this same little setup where he put ratchet straps along the axle that ran back to the frame, and then a ratchet strap in the middle that actually pinched the radius arms together so that you could get them in the hole. Brilliant idea. He stole it from someone else, but thanks, Matt's Garage. You're the best. Now, some of you might be like, you're not even torquing anything down, you're not tightening anything down. I know that. This is a nylon lock nut, and I don't want to tighten this down and, you know, torque it down, get the nylon lock nut torqued down, and then realize, oh, I gotta make a change, and I'm like, how do I do it? Then I have to buy a new lock nut. There's just so many things like that when you are building a Bronco like this, where you don't want to secure everything until you know that you're ready to secure everything. And that, for me, will probably be right before I drop the tub on this frame, then I will secure everything. Now, one thing to keep in mind if you're doing that is to keep track of everything that you need to go back and re-tighten. Now, a word of, you know, advice while we're right here. There's a little clip that goes right here, a little spring, I don't know what it's called, like it's a L-shaped piece of metal that goes right here with a captured nut on one end. I threw mine away when I was taking everything apart, or it's lost somewhere in the garage. So let me just pause here and give you the learn from my mistake. Make sure to keep track of everything. Now, I have been keeping track of my bolts. I've been keeping track of a lot of stuff. Right now, my backyard looks like a junkyard because I have Bronco parts laying all around. And that's actually been helpful because there's things that I'm just like, oh no, I didn't buy that new, or I didn't get, you know, the bolt kit. Because a lot of times the vendors will send you stuff thinking not that you're restoring a Bronco, but thinking that you are replacing something on your current Bronco. So they're not going to send you with all the hardware. They're not going to send you with every nut and bolt unless it's a different size than stock. So that's something to keep in mind as you're doing this. It's a good idea to make note of the stuff that's in good shape that you can reuse, or the stuff that you want to buy new. Now, some of this stuff I'm just upgrading to grade 8 nuts and bolts because that's stronger and it's gonna last longer, and it looks really nice having the gold, you know, the gold head. But some of this stuff just came with, you know, like grade 5 or something like that. And so I'm rolling with that, and I'm using some stuff, reusing some stuff that was on here originally that I've just cleaned up. That still looks fine. But also the other thing that I want to mention, with any suspension lift, you want to get it from a place like Tom's Off-Road where they specifically make suspensions for the early Bronco. There's other places where it's like a generic suspension where, you know, oh yeah, it'll work with a Dana 44 and a Ford 9-inch, like, but with the Bronco, you want to get one that's specific for the Bronco because, you know, that suspension is rated for the weight of the Bronco, for the wheelbase of the Bronco. So it's just better to buy one from a vendor like Tom's Off-Road. I'll put the link in the description below for this suspension, but pretty much got everything in place. Gonna start building the front steering components and get some progress done on that. "26, 27, so I am right there. 25, 26, 27. There we go. Now, I talked about rebuilding my power steering box off of my 75, but then I started looking at all the other stuff that I needed to upgrade the stock steering box, because the stock steering box on this was it wasn't power steering. So I needed the hoses for the power steering box, I needed the pump, pulleys with the 302, the brackets, and then I wanted to get a telescoping steering arm as well. And once I started looking at it, to get the whole kit was actually cheaper than to send my steering box off from my 75 and have it rebuilt and then buy all this stuff. So kudos to Tom's Off-Road for making a kit that actually saves you money if you're doing this upgrade, or if you're doing a restoration like this and you need a power steering box and you need to upgrade all these components as well. This is the way to go. Now, I've got a whole video on the comparison between the stock power steering box, the power steering box off my 75, and then the Tom's Bronco Parts power steering box. So if you want to see that, definitely check that out. But this is definitely a great buy if you're doing this upgrade. Now, because of my powder coat, my bushing sleeve for my track bar isn't gonna easily slide on. So I'm actually gonna do this a little bit out of order using another bushing sleeve. And I'm just gonna tap it on. Usually this would just slide on, but because of my powder coat, it adds that extra little bit that just needed to get peeled off, I guess. All right, so if you can see it, my hole doesn't really line up right now. I'm not super worried about that, but what is worrying is how much thread I've taken out right here to get this even close to the hole. And if you notice here as well, on my drag link, these threads are way out as well. There should not be that much thread showing as you're doing this.
Now is not really the time that you need to be worried about this stuff, that you need to be, trying to get everything in alignment. You want the weight of the vehicle on there. You want the engine in there. You want the body on it for it to all settle down, and then that's when you're gonna really worry about alignment. That's when you're gonna worry about your axle being centered under your frame and all that stuff. Right now, you're getting stuff in place so that you can throw that stuff on the frame and it actually holds on there and that kind of thing. So that's it for today. Now my favorite part of these videos, the breakdown. At the beginning of day 7, I had already spent $7,100 purchasing the Bronco, getting the frame powder coated, and rebuilding the axles. In this episode, I spent $1,100 on the 2.5-inch lift. I spent $400 on steering components, $1,500 on the power steering kit, and another $400 on nuts and bolts and paint and just the stuff that you need to get the project done, for a total of $10,500. When I started this episode, I had spent 29 hours on my restoration. This time I spent 5 hours building the rear suspension, 6 hours cleaning and painting parts, 6 hours on the front suspension, and 6 hours building the knuckles and the steering components, for a total of 52 hours spent so far. All right, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you guys are enjoying the Bronco restoration content, will you do me a favor and just leave a comment below and let me know? I want to hear from you guys. I want to know if this is helpful. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.